Hi everybody, it's Carrie at Flying Scott. I hope you are all doing well and maybe getting a little bit closer to being able to go sailing. I know here in Maryland, still no racing, but we are allowed to go out on the water with the people that we live with. And so that's a step and we're very excited for it, and we're getting excited to get out and just float around for a little bit. But since we're now able to get our boats out and get them on the water, I thought I would take a minute and do a little bit of a visual lesson on the blog that I have posted a while back when we thought we were getting ready for midwinters. And so just kind of talking about the things to look for as you get your boat out and prepare it for another season of sailing. And so today I'm going to focus on the mast. And so we have a lovely used mast here that we're going to show you on so that you can kind of get a better idea of what to look for and what to do when you get your boat ready. So I'm going to kind of just start at the bottom and work my way to the top. So the first thing, and probably one of the most important things, especially with the Flying Scott, is the winch box. The winches are very easy to maintain, and it just takes a few minutes, and by doing so you will save yourself a whole lot of aggravation, and more importantly, that will keep it nice and quiet when you go to lower your sails. I think everybody has probably heard, if they're at a dock with a big group of Flying Scots, there's usually one in the mix that when the sails come down, you hear that lovely, like, loud, high-pitched, sort of goose sounding squeak. And Sandy Douglas he coined that the mating call of the Flying Scott. But we don't really want to hear that. So here's some things you can do. First thing is, we really like to use the Super Lube. It works great and it's not messy. If you get grease or anything like that in here, especially if you're doing this once the mast is up, you can get just gunk all over your deck or all over your boat, and nobody wants that. So this stuff stays in place. It's clear. It's in this nice little tube. We give them out with new boats to help with maintenance, but we also can send you a tube if you'd like, once you see this, if you want to lubricate your winches. So the first thing that we want to do is we take our Super Lube and we just put a really thin bead of it the whole way around. And in the essence of time, I'm not going to do both of them because you guys can get the gist. So you kind of put it the whole way around, and then what you want to do, you do main and jib, and then what you want to do is you pull out your trusty winch crank and you drop the pawl out, and then what I do is just kind of grab it here and you just start working it back and forth. And you can use your hand on the wire that's coming out of the spool. And what that does is it just works in really nicely into the phenolic. And because this lube is a little bit thicker, it'll kind of stay there and it'll just slowly absorb into the phenolic. And so that really just helps keep all of that moving really nicely for you, so that you're not, kind of wrestling with it. This is something that we do on our boat at the beginning of every season, and then also again at the end of the season, just to kind of, again, keep it happy. While we're at the winch, the other thing I want to talk to you about is your brake tips. Those are these nice little plastic guys. You can see them in here. This boats are still in really good shape. These are very important because they put the pressure on the spool and prevent it from back spooling, when the pressure comes off. You see, it's kind of like a fishing reel. You wouldn't want it to back wind and get all kinds of messy. So these are very important. And you adjust the tension just by tightening the screw here. So you just want enough tension that the spool doesn't, unwind on you, but you also don't want so much tension that it's hard to crank it up. These are probably a good thing to have a couple just spare in your locker. Normally they can stay put forever, but sometimes, especially if you sail with a lot of novice crew or a lot of beginners, or if you're just day sailing, when the jib luffs and the sheets go back and forth, occasionally they can kind of hook this spring and pull it out just enough that then bloop, goes your brake tip. And so that's something to always check. Make sure you have your brake tips and that they're a good thickness. They do wear, you know, over time. So you just want to check that. So that's kind of it for the winch box itself. Again, just that nice super lube will really do a lot to keep it rolling nicely. Then what I kind of do is I work my way up the halyards, and we're just checking for any burrs, any spurs, any kinks, or anything that would really just make them. So I kind of just run my hand up, you know, and kind of just give it a visual inspection. Doesn't happen a whole lot, but from time to time. Now this one, for example, we have a great example of it. See, this one is starting to, just from age, you know, it's starting to fray a little bit there. And so that can really not be delightful if you're grabbing that main halyard to put it on. And so, you know, you just want to look over it. And if it's in a place that you can fix it, you know, this one, you could probably just re-swedge it and be good to go. But if it's further up or anything like that, you just want to go ahead and replace that halyard so that you can enjoy raising and lowering your sails without bleeding, and also keeping your crew very happy, because you know, when the crew goes to raise a sail and it gets them, this is just not a great way to start your sailing. So that is kind of it for the halyards. The other thing that I do is I check the actual blocks up top here. So our jib halyard runs through a block right here, attached at the base of our form tangs. And again, same thing. I take my super lube, I just give it a tiny little bead, and then same thing, I just use the wire, both sides, again, in the interest of your time, I'm not gonna, and then I just use the wire to work that in, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then up top with our main halyard, now your main halyard actually has two shivs. A lot of people don't realize that. There's a shiv that's internal here into the masthead that you're never gonna, that you don't see. And really it stays very well protected because it's out of the elements for the most part. So really you just have the main halyard shiv that's here at the very, very top. And this is another thing to check. Now see, this one is turning, but it's starting to wear a little bit. If the main is consistently over hoisted to the point where the Nyko press sleeve is actually up and riding on the shiv, it can kind of wear a flat spot into the shiv. And so you want to check that and make sure that you know, the shiv is still round and it's turning okay. And again, we just kind of put a teeny little dab of lubrication in that. And that one, this one's a little harder, but I kind of just put it right along the outside. See that, where it meets the mast head. And then again, we just kind of work it back and forth. And the nice thing about this stuff is it doesn't run, it doesn't get all over the place. So then you can just kind of walk away and let it do its thing. So those are the halyards. And then the other thing that you always want to check on your mast, which is very, very important, are your stays. A lot of times the stays, they will show slight signs of fatigue before they go. And so it's a key to always check these each season. This is something you could just do in the beginning of the season before you get the boat out. If you do it at the end of the season, then you got to remember to order the parts. Then you got to hold on to them, which for me is a bit of a challenge. So I usually tend to wait and just do it in the spring, right before the boat goes in the water, so that I don't have to try to hold on to all my parts and pieces in between. But what you want to do is you want to check your side stays and your forestay. Now see, this one's kinked right at the swedge there. So it doesn't want to cooperate too well, but that's what you're looking for. So the first thing you want to do is check the swedging itself, this ball swedge. If there's been any sort of fatigue on it, you'll see little cracks. And so you want to check that. And then you also want to check the swedging itself and make sure all your strands are in place. And you work your way down the stay, making sure that all your wires are where you want them to be, and then ending with the swedge that is in the at the very bottom. And we'll look at this one because this side is out. But also checking the swedge down where it connects to the boat, making sure we don't see any stress cracks or sign of fatigue. And you want to repeat that same process with your forestay. They all have these ball swedges, so we just want to make sure that they're in good shape, no cracks, no wear, and that all of our strands are in place. You know, people will have varying opinions on how many strands are safe to sail with. I say all strands, all times. So, you know, it's just an insurance policy. So you always, once one starts to go, I think it's time to probably think about replacing the stays. And then the final thing I do is I check my blocks. This is a used mast, so this is actually not a shackle that we would put on if it was a factory, if it came from the factory, but nonetheless, you want to check these shackles and make sure that they're good and tight. So I use just a pair of pliers and just go around and tighten it for both the spinnaker halyard and the topping lift. I just make sure the blocks are in good shape and that they're free. So that's kind of it. Again, just kind of start at the bottom and work your way up, or vice versa. There's not a lot on the mast, so it's a pretty easy thing to do, and it's a fairly quick thing to do, but it will certainly save you a whole lot of aggravation. You can replace stays, you know, after the season starts, but having to take the mast down, put it back up, and it's just one more thing you got to do. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that it helps make your rigging experience more enjoyable and that you can get out on the water quickly. If you have any questions or if there's anything we can help you with, we're always available via phone or email at info@flyingscot.com. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.